Like many of you, I grew up in a home which had a framed photo of Queen Elizabeth II in the living room. Now, this was the living room, the one we were only allowed in when special guests came over or it was Christmas time. So the Queen was an elevated presence in our home. And so no guessing how devoted I was at an early age to the monarchy. And so it was a strange personal sadness to hear of her death on Friday morning, because I felt like I'd lost someone I knew well, someone that was actually close to me. And I heard the same thing expressed by so many of my radio listeners on my program this weekend as well. In those circumstances, it is not surprising that many Australians have shed tears since Friday morning. And as the Queen said herself, grief is the price we pay for love. How true is that now? There will be no other monarch like her, certainly not in our lifetimes. Elizabeth has always been with us, always dutiful, always humble, strong, but measured. For this country, she was our rock, our eternal backdrop to our achievements and progress as a nation. And I remember October 1973 very well, when, thanks to Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, of all Prime Ministers, the law was changed to ensure that Elizabeth would be called the Queen of Australia. But how could such a young woman cope with the enormous task of monarch at just 25 years of age? Years later, she admitted that in those early days on the throne, she was extremely green.
I have in sincerity pledged myself to your service throughout all my life, and with all my heart I shall strive to be worthy of your trust.
To carry out those duties then, for 7 long decades, has been a Herculean effort. She began as this beautiful but shy young girl who soon matured into the role, providing sage advice to no less than 15 Prime Ministers in total. 15! And 14 of them have all spoken over the years about her wisdom, her kindness and wit. The 15th, of course, has only been in the job a few days. And didn't that final duty, appointing Liz Truss as Prime Minister at Balmoral, illustrate how dutiful and committed the Queen was right to the very end? What extraordinary devotion to a job. And we should always remember that final image of her with Liz Truss, that warm greeting, that radiant smile. It was beautiful. And despite her condition, she battled through with aplomb. But then again, it was not a job to Queen Elizabeth. Devoutly religious, it was something she was convinced came to her from God. Her job was a divine appointment. And I wonder whether she really enjoyed the role she had, the tours she led, the official functions she attended, the ceremonies she had to endure for hours on end. Surely not for 7 decades. But the Queen embraced her commitments without ever complaining. Not once in history did she begrudge her responsibilities. And I think her longevity has meant that every generation had its own relationship with Queen Elizabeth, which is why Australians of all ages have been so impacted by her passing and so very kind in their respectful comments, absolutely everywhere. I'll deal with those who illustrated gross disrespect a little later in the program. But we grew up with her and she grew up with us.
And I congratulate the people of Sydney, and indeed of Australia, on this remarkable addition to its architecture and to its cultural and community life. I have much pleasure in declaring the Sydney Opera House open.
I've got teenage kids, and they spoke to me yesterday about her passing, and they made an interesting comment that she was so dedicated and so popular, probably the most popular woman in the world. And they also noted how she never seemed to be the centre of a scandal, but she was always surrounded by scandals. How true is that? That in itself makes her even more remarkable. And think about how she presented herself in public for a second. She always wore bright colours, presumably to stand out for the public. If that was what she wanted to do, she succeeded. It was always very obvious who the Queen was in a motorcade in a very large gathering. What sartorial elegance. And in some ways, a fashion leader for her age group. We look forward to her Christmas messages with their equal smattering of spiritual guidance and the importance of family. And that small skit with Paddington Bear for her recent Platinum Jubilee celebration summed up her great sense of humour and her close relationship with people right across the world.
I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here.
Oh,
For later.
thank you for everything.
But it is still sad. At a time when the world seems to be an angry, unguided mess, we can least afford to lose someone of Queen Elizabeth's calibre. The world has not just lost a member of the royal family, we've lost an international diplomat, a stoic leader of men and women, and a woman who was a phenomenal example to absolutely everyone. And we've lost a big part of our history, not just related to Britain, but our own Australian history. At such pivotal stages over the past 70 years, she was either here to acknowledge the changes and accomplishments or would often send video messages about those historic events. We owe her so much for taking her role as the Queen of Australia so seriously and so diligently. She nurtured this brash, talented and lucky country like as if it were hers. In a way it was. Australia had such a close affinity with her, and it's a relationship we will never see the likes of again.